It was just another day at school. Cooper was just the same as ever, hunched over on his desk, stabbing his eraser with a borrowed pencil. Then the door opened, which he shrugged off as just Carla coming back from the bathroom. Except it wasn't. It was someone new. His dark hair thrown back in a messy fashion, sharp jaw, a light button-up with dark skulls on it, and army green shorts. The boy walked in and Mr. Ortez introduced him into the class. His name was John. Cooper was very uninterested, until John looked right at him for a second or two and just stared at him. "What is he looking at?" whispered Travis, Cooper's best friend. "Well, obviously me, but if he keeps it up, he's gonna get put in his place." John sat down at the back of the class, 2 rows behind Cooper and Travis, and for the rest of the class, Cooper had a terrible feeling in his gut, like he had seen something sickening. Later that day, during lunch, Cooper and Travis were sitting at their usual spot against the wall on the inner side of campus, away from most other kids. "These other kids need to seriously understand you can't ask for answers," Cooper complained. "Their parents probably never told them no. Bunch of spoiled brats." Travis responded. Footsteps approached the two, which they'd expected to look and see a teacher who overheard, or maybe Travis's counselor to ask why he didn't show up to their meeting today. But neither were expecting to see John, carrying his lunch tray and sitting down next to Cooper. "Hey, John, anybody sitting here?" The silence and cold stares weren't enough of a hint. "I'll take that as a no. So what do you two do over here for fun anyways?" John asked curiously. "Why do you care? We just talk," Cooper told him. "Just making conversations. I don't know anyone here, and I thought it'd be a good idea to start small." Travis was never fond of people, especially new ones. "Well, you thought wrong. We get along best by ourselves, thanks." John took this lightly. "Oh, I get that. My uncle works for a construction company and liked to sit by himself at the construction sites, but then he opened up a bit and now he goes drinking every Friday after work with his other work buddies." Both the boys were still on the edge and didn't trust him for a second. The bell rang, signaling lunch was over and they'd have 6 minutes to get to their next class, which would be both Cooper's and John's last class for the day. Cooper started his long walk home, and Jan ran to catch up to him. "Hey, Cooper, didn't think you were going to stop." "Yeah, I've got headphones in. Did you want to ask me something?" Cooper knew he wanted to be friends, but there was something very off-putting about John. The way he looked and talked didn't match whatsoever. It seemed like some grand facade. "Oh no, I just wanted to talk. I know you and Travis aren't the most social people, but I think we could be pretty good friends," John explained. "What gives you that idea?" "Well, your shirt is a start. Nirvana's one of my favorites. I love Smells Like Teen Spirit most." "Oh great, he's one of those guys," Cooper thought. "Yeah, they're pretty good," Cooper responded dryly. "Oh, that's my house. See you later then," John said as he went up the steps of a new house with a fresh coat of paint on it, which didn't match the other buildings on the street. Darker tones and many years old. That night, Travis had called Cooper. "Smells like Teen Spirit? Smells like the only song you know. He's just one of those kids, annoyingly perfect, too kind, and overly basic. I bet his favorite Marvel movie is Avengers Endgame." "Yeah, I don't trust him either. We just need to get him off of us, but I'm not sure how easy that's gonna be," Cooper said. "Hey, remember that old factory we found with a really deep basement?" "Yeah, what about it?" Travis asked. "Well, we could ask him to hang or something and bring him out there, drop him in the basement and leave. If that doesn't send him the right message, I don't know what will." "Dude, that's crazy. Do you remember how far that drop is? It's a good 30 to 40 feet, and I'm pretty sure the ground is solid concrete. Even if he lives, his legs would break and he'd probably die down there." "I don't know, dude. I'm really sick of him." "Yeah, so am I, but I don't think killing him just because he's really annoying is the right way to go about this." "I'm going to bed. You should too." The next day was very fuzzy for Cooper. He only really woke up after school when he talked to John on his way home. "And that's how I got this scar," John finished. "That's crazy. Hey, do you want to go hang out later? There's some abandoned factory near my house if you want to come check it out." "Oh, yeah, I'd love to go," John responded. The factory was located on 42nd and Westcroft, 3 blocks away from Cooper's house. He had felt numb on the walk to the factory. Every sound was getting drowned out, and he was just thinking of how he was going to do this. When they finally reached the factory, Cooper led John inside and made his way to the back corner. "Whoa, this place is crazy. It's huge," John exclaimed. "Yeah, it's a pretty nice place to relax," Cooper responded in a flat voice. "Hey, come here," Cooper told John, showing him the hole in the ground where the floor had been caved in. And from what little light was shining through, the bottom had piles of concrete. John walked over to the edge and looked over into the hole. Cooper took a couple slow steps to get behind John and quickly pushed him in. John made a quick gasp and flailed his arms for a second, and then a moment of silence. Then there was a crack. John's body hit the bottom, and Cooper stood in shock of what he'd just done. John was still conscious, breathing heavily and crying out. Cooper leaned over the edge to see John's mangled body on the floor. His leg was bent backwards, both arms had been pierced by rebar, and his entire torso had been shifted. Fear began to seep down Cooper's spine. He started hyperventilating and shaking, his hands trembling. Cooper took off running all the way back home. He skipped dinner and went straight to his bedroom. Cooper didn't sleep that night, or the one after that. He started to hear John's voice echo through his head. Sometimes he thought he'd seen him out of the corner of his eye, standing against a wall. This ate away at him, and he thought that the only way to relieve himself of these terrors would be to go back to the factory and seal the hole to the basement. Cooper knew this was ridiculous, but was desperate to rid himself of the guilt. Cooper snuck out at 1:30 a.m. on Saturday, 4 days after, and went out to the factory, taking the long way through the hiking trail so that he wouldn't be seen on the public streets. Cooper finally reached the factory, his hands already shaking. He brought with him a flashlight and a backpack that had a large tarp, and a couple of rocks inside, so he could cover the hole and use the rocks to hold the tarp from blowing away or falling in. He went inside, running to the back corner so he could go back home as quickly as possible. When he reached the corner, Cooper took a deep breath, got down on his hands and knees, and slowly leaned over the edge. He shined his flashlight down the hole and was horrified at what he'd seen. He expected to see John's body, but that definitely wasn't John. The body at the bottom had light hair and a more round face, the opposite of John. Cooper was horrified, shaking even worse than before. He wasn't even sure what he saw was real, so he leaned over the pit and took a long look at the bottom. His hand slipped, and he didn't have enough time to catch himself. Cooper dropped straight down and landed right on top of the other body, the flashlight rolling away. He'd been impaled and had several bones broken, and with the little breath he had, he cried for help. His flashlight had still been on, but dimming quickly. Cooper looked over at the lit area, and through his tear-filled eyes saw the silhouette of a person examining his suffering. His vision faded, and he let out one final breath. Cooper was never found. I've got to admit, though, it was strange watching this all unfold and not be able to interfere. However, he did have it coming. My job is to observe and record without interference. I could lose my job if I did. It's almost relaxing being able to watch it all go down, though. Not having a care in the world, just being allowed to watch the madness ensue. To see the world burn right in front of you. And it isn't even your problem. This was test number 3. Only 77 more. The show must Go on.